meeting of the Planning Commission to order. We will start with an invocation by Maurice McKenzie.
Okay, thank you. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for this wonderful Anderson community and the opportunity for all of us to gather as a group here tonight to discuss items that really shape this special place where we live. And bless everyone in attendance and be with the Planning Commission this evening to help guide and direct their deliberations to be in the best interest of our community. We ask this in your name. Amen.
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 All right. Looking at the minutes from our February 7th meeting, did anyone see anything that needed to be changed or amended?
Nope.
Hearing none, make a motion.
I'll make a motion they be approved.
All right, a second.
Aye.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, moving along. I do not believe we have any addenda to the agenda, but I do want it noted that we have our new senior planner here tonight, Chris Darnell. So welcome him to the planning department. So he will lead us in the future. So moving along to the public hearings, we have ANX 23-1, 2, and 3.
That's correct. Thank you. And this property is located at the corner of Simpson Road, East Calhoun Street. It's shaded in red right here. The property is currently located outside the city limits in the unincorporated area of Anderson County. The area you see in gray is all areas that are in the county. The areas that are colored with various zoning classifications, those are pieces of property that are inside the city. So you can see this property is contiguous via Calhoun Street on the other side, also to the south, where Cobblestone West subdivision is located. Now, this property consists of 0.76 acres, basically 3/4 of an acre. And it was one parcel of land until recently when the applicant went to Anderson County and requested to subdivide the property into 3 lots. And this is kind of difficult to see, but you can see from the tax map records, there's 3 new lots. 2 lots that are roughly 8,000 square feet in size, one that's roughly 14,000 square feet in size. Like I said, they went to the county, had the property subdivided. They also obtained building permits to construct 3 houses on the site, and I'll show you pictures of them. This is the one facing Simpson Road, and these are 2 houses on Calhoun Street. The first one I showed you is located right here. They kind of look like multifamily buildings, but they truly are single family in nature. So again, that's the way we're looking at it from a zoning perspective tonight. But the reason we're here is for annexation, because this property is located within the city's sewer service area. So in order to receive city sewer, if you're outside the city, you must sign a sewer service annexation agreement, which basically states that if and when you become contiguous to the city limits, we have the right to annex your property. Since this is already touching the city limits, we're moving forward with annexation of the property. The requested zoning for this, we see being the best fit, is R5, single-family residential. Basically, that allows lots with single-family houses being at least 5,000 square feet in size. The next zoning classification we have is R10. That really wouldn't fit because that allows 10,000 square foot lots, and 2 of these are less than that. So that's the reasoning for asking for R5 zoning. And like I said, you can see there's a variety of land uses already in the area. You have in the county some townhouses located directly behind this. Across the road, there's a PDD, Laurelwood. You have single family and duplexes. You have patio homes to the south. You have some single family scattered around as well. But again, this comes to you tonight with a recommendation of approval to annex these 3 lots to R5 single family residential. Any questions for staff?
Did you receive any calls on this, or?
We received a few calls just asking, hey, what's the sign for? I'm not certain if there's anybody here in attendance, so you may want to ask that.
Okay. Let's see. Anybody have any other questions for staff? Hearing that, is there anyone here for opposition to ANX 23-1?
Either gave me the answer why they want to go into the city. They don't have sewer. Yeah, I don't mind them being there.
Sorry, will you state your name and where?
I'm Paul Spivey.
Okay.
I'm 126 Britannia Circle, down the street about a block and a half. and I don't mind the buildings. The problem is that they're about 21 feet away from the so-called apartments that the county let put in several years ago, and they're falling apart right now. And it's bad enough we have to look at them because there's no fence here. But I'm wondering if the new builder is going to put a fence between the new owners and the old owners.
Okay.
I mean, right now, it looked terrible. Not to mention, it looked like a fire trap. They go 3 stories straight up.
You're talking about the apartments behind that are county
Yes.
apartments?
I'm talking about the building in front and the apartment. There are only so many feet between them. I guess they're going to stay in the county.
As far as I know, yes, that we're
Yeah,
only
they
talking
are.
about the annexation of the 3 homes that are currently being built on Simpson Road and Calhoun.
I'm just curious what they're going to do about dividing the 2 buildings.
Staff, has there been any kind of,
We're talking about the townhomes?
Yeah.
what he's talking about is the new construction between the, I mean, there's really nothing,
No idea. Again, that property's in the county. We haven't seen any plans for it.
okay.
I mean, nothing personal, but a lot of us would oppose this thing the way it looked right now. It looked terrible. And I'm sure the people living behind it aren't too happy either.
Well, again, that's not really what this commission's
I know,
about.
we're trying to
We're
get-
about,
we're trying- But they went ahead and started building all this without even thinking about anything. They
Yeah.
did that knowing about the sewer line.
I will say, by coming into the city, the 3 lots we're talking about, the 3 houses, by being in the city, we do have a code enforcement department. If there's violations with tall grass, any type of nuisance like that, we can enforce our code enforcement guidelines on those properties. Again, townhouses behind it, we just have no control over that.
yeah, that would be more of a, you'd have to go to the building and codes for the county for the apartment
Well, I'm trying to say
complexes.
the property we're talking about is now going to be in the city. It'll be only a foot away from the other property line. It means they're going to be almost on top of each other when you look at your property map right there.
Yeah, again, we are essentially inheriting this because the building permits have already been issued. It followed the county's guidelines, so all the development went through the county's procedures. And so we're, I mean, lack of better words, we're inheriting it after the fact, so.
Okay.
Well, like I said, it is an eyesore as it is right now. Now it's going to be a bigger eyesore because they're going to be blending new and old together. Drive by if you get a chance to look at it. The photographs don't do it justice. But I'm
Yeah,
just saying-
I know where you're talking about, and I know the apartment complexes, and it's, I mean, unfortunately, that's
But
not
that
what we're
doesn't
here
have to be on
to
their
discuss
property line.
tonight.
I'm talking about the new property owners. They should have a fence running behind the thing.
And again, we don't require fences on
Yeah.
single-family
You did.
properties anywhere in the city, but they certainly reserve the right to do so. And if they find that these apartments adjacent to it are nuisances, you may
They
see
will
those
be.
go up.
Okay.
And maybe the developer is doing that, I don't know, but again,
Okay.
it's up to them to choose to put up a fence or not.
Well, if staff will, let the developer know.
Please check into that.
Yeah.
We'll certainly let them know.
We would
Yeah.
feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Okay.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yes. Question for Mr. Spivey?
Actually, for Mr. McKenzie, can you tell Mr. Spivey how he can find out when the county meetings are?
The county,
Is there a place
Well-
online or something where he could look up?
county council meetings,
Yeah.
the best thing to do is go to their website. I think they meet the second, go to the website. It's on Tuesdays when they meet, but I think they meet twice a month. Thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you.
But the county council could help address some of those situations.
Especially on the
There will be a
apartment.
problem if it's not done. It's going to fall apart very rapidly without a divider. Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate
Spivey.
Thank you.
Any more discussion or about ANX 23, 1, 2, and 3? Here none, would someone like to make a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the annexation?
Motion to be approved. Any second?
Second.
Second from Bryce. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that will move forward to the city council.
Yes, they meet on Monday, May 8th.
All right. So moving along to RZ 23-1.
Correct, thank you. The applicant in this situation is Vets Helping Vets. We have several of our friends here from Vets Helping Vets tonight. Welcome. But Vets Helping Vets, they are a nonprofit organization that seeks to provide support for veterans through meetings, community service projects, things of that nature. And They have been growing, and as you can see, they have large numbers, but because of their increasing numbers, their current meeting space has been maxed out, so they do wish to construct a building of their own. According to some notes I took when talking to them earlier on, the organization currently has about 320 members, is continuing to grow. They have about 150 people attending their weekly meetings as well. And the property we're talking about tonight is this property. There's actually two parcels of land. The largest one is 3.15 acres, and then there's a tiny little sliver of 0.17 right here. But for all intents and purposes, we'll just say it's 3.5 acres we're talking about. But you can see it outlined there, and you can see this is zoned R10, single-family residential currently. But again, they own the property. They seek to rezone the property to NC neighborhood commercial so they can build a meeting facility on their site. They're looking at doing something around the size of 4,500 square feet in terms of a building, and of course there would be associated parking, landscaping, everything else to go along with that that meets our guidelines. And the intent for this building is to be used solely for their weekly meetings. Now, like I said, this is zone R10 single-family residential, and it essentially allows houses, 10,000 square foot lots. You can see to the east, the Fredericks, Mayfield, Woodburn Avenue area, all the same color, because those are all houses zone R10 single-family residential. Just happen to be a piece of property that's been undeveloped through the years. Now, how do we come up with the requested zoning of NC neighborhood commercial? We looked at this proposed use and tried to find the best classification for it, and we consider it to be a community center or a community type center. And by looking through our zoning guidelines, we have several commercial zoning classifications, but the least intensive one that allows a community type center is NC neighborhood commercial. And NC neighborhood commercial allows a variety of uses such as this. It allows some retail, office uses that generally serve the surrounding neighborhoods. Now, a couple things here, and you have in your packet, and this is just a very conceptual site plan. And first of all, I'll show you on this first, but this property, yes, 3.5 acres, but a significant amount of this property may not be the easiest to develop, if at all. Mainly this area down in this section. There are some topography issues, there's some old right-of-ways, easements, there's utilities going through there. So in order to develop it, they would have to look to the upper portion of the site. And I'll show you this in a moment, but the area where they have on their conceptual plan is to have the building located roughly in this area here with parking going in that direction. And I said this is a conceptual drawing, so this is not, final submitted drawing. There would be much more required. But again, this is showing the building. This is Woodburn Avenue and the curve by Frederick Street right here. Sorry about that. The building's just below it. And you can see the houses directly across from there. But again, that's showing the conceptual plan. It's one thing we ask for them to submit just to make sure that, hey, can you meet, is the site big enough for you to put the building and parking on there? So that's why we asked for that. It is conceptual, but if this is approved and as we get through the process, they will have to submit all the site plans, grading plans, all of the plans required and created by a design professional to be reviewed by the city. The city now has a tree ordinance, which you're all aware of, which was approved and adopted last year about this time. So there will be a tree survey that needs to be completed to accompany any plans they submit in the future to save as many trees as possible, and that's something we work with if and when this property is rezoned. So there are several things that goes along with that. Landscaping, screening in particular, especially since it's adjacent to single-family residential neighborhoods. Those are two incompatible land uses. We'll need to make sure that the adequate screening, landscaping, per the city requirements are met for those properties. But when we look at this site, you see most of the area through here is zone R10 single-family residential. You do have Whitehall Road up here, schools located over there. Along Bleckley Street, these properties are not inside the city. They're commercial, industrial type uses. Down here, you have neighborhood commercial zoning, which is the zoning that the applicant's requesting. That's actually a church. So you do have that across the street. But with Bleckley Street being a 4-lane road, it carries about 6,000 cars per day. There's a nearby property zoned neighborhood commercial, and because of the fact that only a small portion of this property can be developed, the staff can support a request such as this. With that said, one thing we would like to mention is as we go through the process, if this is rezoned, when plans are submitted, to pay careful attention and maybe work to orient the site toward Bleckley Street rather than interior to Woodburn Avenue. As I showed you earlier on that conceptual drawing, they had their point of ingress, egress to Woodburn Avenue, which we understand because it might be an easier way to get in and out from on a residential street, but it does, it could impact the residential area and neighborhood character. So what we would like to see and work with the applicant and their engineers and designers to maybe orient the site more toward Bleckley Street with frontage, ingress, egress. As a matter of fact, we talked to the DOT today to see, hey, is it possible to have a curb cut along this area? And obviously, we don't have official plans to submit to them, but they, to kind of a bird's eye view, said, generally speaking, yes. I mean, there could be some challenges associated with topography, site distance. Those things would have to be looked at closer, but conceivably, yes, you could have a curb cut. It would have to be further down, away from Whitehall Road, but those things are typically reviewed during the site plan review process. But again, that's the report from the staff. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Obviously, the applicant and representatives are in attendance. We may have some residents from the neighborhood here as well, so just keep that in mind as we go through the discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you. One question I do have, did you receive any phone calls or any?
Yep. We did receive some phone calls. Again, people, normal asking about the signage, what does it entail? A couple people did ask about, well, where's the building going to be located and that type of thing. So just general questions regarding what is proposed. They asked, what is Vets Helping Vets, the basic things.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? All right, I do. Okay.
Sorry, Maurice, sorry. The site planning would be after we either vote to rezone or not rezone.
That's
right?
correct. Yeah, the rezoning establishes, the allowable uses on the piece of property, and once it's rezoned, then they can submit their plans, and that goes through the process to ensure that it meets all of the city requirements, setbacks, landscaping, screening, tree ordinance, all of the above.
And I know you said that these two buildings are in the county, but what are they directly across?
I may need to get some help from my friends on that one. I'm drawing a blank, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So, I guess my sense of any knowledge stops at the city limit line. So.
I believe the one at the corner of Whitehall and Bleckley is a derelict home that was, I think, torn down.
Yeah, it used to be an antique store at one time.
Yeah,
Correct.
I believe
yeah,
it
that's
was,
right.
But yeah.
It was.
But it's zoned in the county. What is it zoned as?
It may not have any zoning.
You
There's
don't know
portions of the
the-
county
no
that has no
zoning.
zoning.
Okay.
But it's been used as commercial
Yeah,
property for
it has a
as
commercial
long as I
use,
can
yeah.
remember. So,
If this were to be moved forward to neighborhood commercial, it would have to be, if the space would be outgrown and Vets Helping Vets would have to relocate elsewhere, somebody else could potentially have to come in and rezone this again if there was anything in the future that it wanted to be changed to for this property.
That's correct. Zoning runs with the land, does not run with the property owner. So once it's rezoned, it's rezoned. And we are currently in the process of revising all of our zoning guidelines, documents, and you're all part of the process, and you'll be seeing more later. But currently, with the property being zoned neighborhood commercial, obviously it allows community centers, but it does allow, a menu of other items ranging from churches, daycare centers, banks, funeral homes, government offices, multifamily dwellings, nursing home, pharmacies, various retail uses, veterinarian hospital, things of that nature. But again, it does allow retail uses, and again, it does allow more than what the proposed use is. It's definitely not residential.
Okay.
Correct, there's 17 other usages.
Yeah.
This could be.
And you said the NC across the street that is in the city is a church?
It's a church, yes, sir.
Been here a long time.
Yeah.
I make a motion that
But we need
This
to,
property be rezoned neighborhood commercial.
But, well, so we have a motion. I do want to hear from the applicant just for clarification and opposition, just to make sure if we have any. So can one member of the applicant step up and just kind of speak for the group? So usually with this, we have about 10 minutes for the applicant, 15 minutes for rebuttal, and then another 5 minutes for the applicant. So I do have a question for you. Seeing the proposed, where the building's going to be, and I do understand with the topography, there's a lot of useless ground on this. So I did want to ask, is it viable to move that driveway out of the neighborhood and put it onto Bleckley?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay.
Excuse me. Yes, sir, there's 2 locations that will work on Blakely Street for
Okay.
us. And we're gonna put a wall up behind those 3 homes that face, what is it?
West Frederick Street and?
No, not that, they're the main road, Whitehall Road.
Okay,
It's directly behind that, it's all wooded.
Okay.
And we're gonna put a privacy fence up back there.
okay.
What time are y'all's weekly meetings?
Sorry?
What time are y'all's weekly meetings every week?
We meet every Wednesday at 9:30 from, at 9:30 to 11:30 at the Elks Lodge, 225 McGee Road here in
Okay.
Anderson. Been there for 8.5 years.
Excellent. Excellent.
We started out with only 14 guys.
Excellent. Well, it's good to see the growth. Yeah.
I did not catch your name. What was your name, sir?
I'm sorry I didn't.
What's your name, sir?
My name is Jesse Taylor. I'm the founder of Vets Helping Vets Anderson.
Okay.
And I would like to thank Mr. Maurice Hastings and the zoning council for giving us the opportunity to be here tonight. As you can see in the numbers we have, there's a tremendous need. And I can tell you right now, if you ride down Blakely Street, it's not the most prettiest street in the world. We'll make a gym out of that corner. We'll make something that Anderson can really be proud of. I've got a detail that consists of approximately 15 guys. They're a landscaping crew. The youngest one is 65. The oldest one is 86. And you ought to see him with a weed whacker. That's Anthony John Wayne. Seriously.
Well, and I do agree that, with that corner, it is overgrown and everything.
Yes, sir.
But
And there's a
Mr.
big
Taylor,
old sinkhole down there, But we've got plans where we want to have like a walking track around the entire area. And number one, this will be, God willing, our permanent home. I don't want to go anywhere. We're not leasing it out to anyone. There's no alcohol or anything. It's just a no-no, never. There's never been at the Elks Lodge and won't be at this location. It's strictly, I have women now that call me up in the evenings and say, Mr. Taylor, thank you. Well, okay, for what? For getting him off the couch and getting him involved in something. You know how many veterans are in Anderson County?
No.
17,000 to 18,000.
okay.
And they all vote. And our mission is to give the veterans of Anderson County a better quality of life. We purchased a 40-foot shipping container because we're just, down at the Elks Lodge, we're at their mercy, but we have been an excellent tenant. We did all the work down there for them. We built a closet. We did a renovation of the main hall. We maintained the landscaping, and after we leave, we'll still do that because we have an excellent relationship with them. But I lost what I was thinking about. I just had back surgery, and it's kind of tender right now.
Well, do we know with the initial plan for what the building's going to be, what the occupancy, do we have any idea what the total occupancy can be for that size of the
Approximately
building?
300 with the building we've got,
Okay.
the plans, yes.
Okay.
And that will by far exceed what we would ever need. And if the good Lord shines on us and we get more vets coming in, we'll just run double sessions.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a plus. We're willing to work with the city. We come here very humble. There's a need for this for the veterans. There truly is. And it will give them the opportunity to get out of their house and just go and talk to their friends, have a cup of coffee, just to get away for just an hour or so. And I hate to say this, but most of the seniors everywhere, they're lonely. They have nothing to do. Most of them's children are long gone or just don't even care anymore. They don't have any friends. I have people that come into this group and they say, God, I couldn't wait for Wednesday. And I hear that, and that included myself, you know, and we started out as a combat PTSD group, and we're involved to this. But we have two other groups as well. We have a group on Monday night for combat PTSD, and we have a women's group. With the building of our own, we'll be able to house all these groups in one place. And it's just a terrific opportunity. Mr. Roy Jeffcoat donated this property to us. And, you know, we were just thrilled to death. We have got the opportunity, and we have been doing some serious fundraising. And let me tell you something, the people, the businesses all over Anderson County and the city have bent over backwards to help us. Yeah, I've got stuff just waiting for you guys to approve it, and we're ready to go.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
Mr. Taylor, have you heard from any of the surrounding homeowners, any kind of opposition at all from the surrounding homeowners?
We walked around and interviewed, we canvassed the entire perimeter. No one. Matter of fact, we ran across 3 veterans. They said, oh, golly, that's great. We can just walk over here. Yeah, that's true. But no, everybody that we encountered, most of them I found out were renting there. But there was a couple of homeowners, and the ones that we talked to were encouraged about it. They thought it would be just a terrific idea. And we're not talking about an old barn. We're talking about an attractive building with a rock fascia on the front of it. And it's going to be landscaped. And it'd be a beautiful thing. Like I say, Blakely Street, if you ride down it now, this land has never been developed. It's briars and brimbles and sinkholes, but we're going to really make something out of it because we have the people with the knowledge and the will to do it, you know, and I'm asking for you to give us a break.
Question. Mr. Taylor, I wanted to first of all say thank you so much for your service and everyone else here tonight. My
Yes, sir,
grandfather was
appreciate
a veteran, Navy, USS Columbia, so I have a soft spot in my heart for everybody here that served. And I really love what you guys' mission is and kind of y'all's goal and vision for this space. I think it could be something really special. One thing that I wanted to ask about from a logistics standpoint, our packet says usually around 100 to 150 participants at each meeting, give or take. Is there any plans to develop any more parking? On the projected plans, I only saw 10 parking spaces originally. And I know there's more land to develop if need be. Maurice, did you have?
Well, I was going to
something?
mention that, again, if rezoned, plans will need to be submitted, and part of any development plan is adequate parking. And each land use has different calculations for parking. We were looking in the office today what that means, and it depends on how you classify this in parking, but they would probably need upwards of 50 parking spaces at least to meet the requirements of the law.
Okay.
But again, what you see on that drawing is very conceptual in nature. There would need to be much more work done to determine where parking will go.
Okay.
And
Correct.
associated landscaping and everything related to development.
This is mainly about just the rezoning at this point, just to, thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone here in opposition of the rezoning? Okay, I was going to tell them good luck. Hearing that we don't have any opposition, we will go on with the motion for Mr. Seegers that we motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that will go in front of City Council.
That's correct. This goes before City Council for 2 readings, beginning on May 8th, Monday
Okay.
night, May 8th, 6
All right.
PM, same place.
All right. So if anyone wants to leave at this point who is here for just the RZ 23-1, you may do so, but we do have one more thing on the agenda. RZ 23-10.
We'll take a 5-minute break.
We'll take about a 5-minute break. 23-2.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
The door's
Yeah, we
closing.
can hear you
Okay,
fine.
very good. I'll take you back to 2003, so 20 years ago, actually. The city annexed approximately 139 acres and zoned the property to PDD, Planned Development District, which allowed a mixture of single-family, multifamily, and even office-related uses. And as you know, PDDs, Planned Development Districts, act as the development standards for a particular piece of property. So when that was written in 2003, it was broken down into 5 development tracts. The majority, more than 50% of the property has now been developed, because tonight we're talking about roughly 61 acres of that 139 acres. But the 5 development tracts we're talking about, all around this area here, it doesn't show entirely on this map, but Rockwell Plantation, phases 1 and 2, also Martin's Trail subdivision, that was recently completed, actually. Back in 2015, an amendment to the PDD document for Tract A actually came before the Planning Commission and City Council at the time to allow some changes, including the reduction of lot sizes from 10,000 square feet to 7,800 square feet. And that revision was successful. And then Martin's Trail, they did construct their houses based on that PDD revision and those standards. But the current request we're talking about this evening pertains to the remaining undeveloped portion of Tracts A, and then all of Tracts B and C. And when I say remaining portion of Tract A, when this was revised in 2015 for 7,800 square foot lots, I would say roughly in this area, that's the remaining part of Tract A in here. Then you have Tract B, you also have Tract C. And if you look at the cover of your PDD document that's in there, you can see the boundaries a little more clearly. But the request before you tonight is to revise the document to allow single-family residential development of up to 150 homes on the 61 acres. Now, the attached concept plan that you have in your packet, it shows 136 lots, and we believe that's the number they're landing on. We can discuss that with the applicant in a little bit more in detail, but based on this concept plan, roughly 1/3 of the property, 20 acres, will be open space. And again, the specific nature of the applicant's request, while they're coming to us tonight, is to ask for a reduction in lot size from 10,000 square feet to 7,500 square feet. And the average lot size would be around 9,000 square feet per this concept plan. And the reasoning per the applicant's request is to free up more space for their amenities in the subdivision. There's required stormwater, obviously. Plus, by increasing the density of the lots, it does free up more space to save existing trees on the site. And there are lots of trees on the property. Now, you can see in your packet, I included the 2003 version of the PDD document along with the one that's currently proposed. The one in 2003 was pretty basic, as you can see. Basic language in there for every tract located in what is known as the Mayfield. Little detail, but it did have in there in certain tracts, including B and C, not only could you have single-family residential, you can also have office uses. You can have multifamily uses as well. But that's in the old document, and we'll talk about some changes in a moment with what's being proposed. But you've been involved over the past couple of years. We've seen several new developments and PDDs come your way, and the city, for lack of a better word, has been evolving in terms of how we create our development standards. And we're looking at more language to enhance aesthetics, to make sure that the quality of development is a little bit better. So that's what we're striving for now. And we'll go through a few things here. But since they are asking to revise the document, we've worked with the applicant to add additional language to help strengthen it. As I mentioned earlier, on much of this property, office uses, multifamily uses are allowed on the property. They are stating they will remove that, so only single-family uses would be allowed on the balance of this property. We've added language saying that land clearance activities shall be limited to areas just necessary for construction and for improvement, such as buildings, detention ponds, various infrastructure. We have details related to house construction, including size and materials, something that's been pretty standard in some of the documents you've approved in the past. From a landscaping perspective, there's language in there saying that 2 trees must be planted per lot, one on the front to provide a street tree effect. Currently, there's no language in the PDD document that would require them to plant any trees. Also, language added regarding sidewalks in the development. There's been in the past, before we've started looking at this closer, with your smaller lot sizes, that the driveways aren't wide enough or they're not deep enough, and it causes a lot of on-street parking. Language is in there saying that there will be enough of garage and driveway width and length to minimize the need for on-street parking. The proposal and shows on the drawing, and also it's written in the PDD document, that there will be 2 points of ingress and egress into the subdivision, one on Harriet Circle, one on McConnell Springs Road, so it does provide 2 means of access and exit. Other things written into the document, which we've seen lately, is to eliminate vehicle headlights from shining onto lots in the subdivision, at the end of T intersections to have more green spaces. And one thing that's really important to discuss and come to mind tonight is that, as I mentioned, last year we adopted the tree preservation ordinance. And by revising the document, the tree preservation ordinance will come into play with this. And there are some significant trees on the site. In fact, the applicants already conducted a tree survey. They've already provided us some preliminary tree save documents. Our new senior planner, who has a landscape architect by trade, has already walked the site. He's talked with the applicant. Already the wheels are in motion regarding that. And again, the landscaping tree save plans comes after the fact, but again, that discussion has been started. And I say that because currently, under current standards, the tree preservation ordinance does not apply because it's an already approved PDD document. But by revising it, it does trigger us the ability to incorporate the tree preservation ordinance into this. Now, when you look around the site, much of the property is zone PDD, like I mentioned. This came in back in 2003. You have single-family residential over here. That's Clarendon subdivision. It's located in the county. You have some single-family homes located here in the county. Also over here, it's also a planned development. It's owned by ANMED. So ANMED reaches all the way to this property. One thing to mention, as you're aware of, there's a multi-use trail that runs along Harriet Circle, McConnell Springs Road. And then that's one thing that we want to take in consideration with landscaping and screening as well. But we see from a staff perspective that much of this revision strengthens the PDD document. Like I said, the 2003 version is very limited with language. So we do recommend approval to revise this PDD document. We do plan to work closely with the applicant's engineer to maximize areas of saved trees per the tree ordinance and final site layout. Again, like I said earlier, we've already started that discussion. And all of that will take place during the site plan review process. But some particular areas of areas that we want to consider and to really look at closer are to look at the areas where the multi-use trail runs along Harriet Circle and McConnell Springs Road. Also, we want to make sure that the area in the back where it abuts Clarendon subdivision, careful consideration is taken there to preserve trees and to make sure everything is intact there. We do recommend, and we can discuss this with the applicant tonight, but we want to maybe add a little bit more language in the PDD document, requiring that all graded areas, slope areas, are not just left alone, but they are replanted with native evergreen trees, not only to help stabilize the soil, but also to provide extra screening and buffer for surrounding areas. And one in particular is Clarendon subdivision. But again, that's the report from the staff. I'll be glad to answer any questions for you. I do know the applicant's here, and also I do believe there are some citizens that may want to speak this evening.
Okay. Question for staff. So what you mentioned last about the landscaping, the grading landscaping, that's not currently in this revised PDD as of yet?
That's correct, yeah. We may want to strengthen that language, and our senior planner, Chris, can certainly help craft that with the applicant if they are willing to discuss that
Okay.
this evening.
And what it's currently, the current PDD on this property, they could put 3-story buildings, multifamily, and everything
Yeah,
else.
what
So-
you see in there now, with particularly in tracks B and C, you could put the multifamily buildings, you could put office uses in there as well.
Okay.
And if you went straight single family or a combination of such, the minimum lot size currently is 10,000. They're asking for a reduction to 7,500.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? I'm going to raise my question that I always do whenever we talk about this area. Harriet Circle and McConnell Springs roads, the roads,
Yeah.
they can't really handle any more traffic as it stands. Where do we stand on getting those repaved?
There's plans in the works, as you know, if you
For the
continue up Harriet
roundabouts.
Circle up toward Midway School, where Harriet Circle will be reconfigured into Midway Road, traffic circle there, traffic circle at Crestview. That obviously does not apply right here. But one thing in our ANAT's long-range transportation plan we have as some of our future projects are to look at corridor studies in this general area, and this corridor does fall into that. So what we'll be looking at are other ways to alleviate traffic as we move forward. But again, development may happen first, but we are looking at ways to continue to improve it out there because this is obviously a growing area. And right now, again, 10,000 square foot lots can be built there now. So regardless, we would still have to look at
Correct.
traffic concerns.
Correct. Okay.
So if the current document were to stay in force and they were to build single-family, how many homes can they build on the
I
property?
don't know the answer to that exactly, Mr. Sconiers, but I would expect it could, and the engineer might be able, and the applicant might be able to answer that better, but I would expect it would be just as many or possibly more.
So we're not really increasing number of units?
Again, I don't know for certain, but I would think that the number, they could probably get 135, 175 houses in there based on just your general math, taking out 25, 30% for infrastructure, and, just that
And
general
could
bird's eye
potentially
view.
be much more than that if they decided to do multifamily.
Correct.
Yeah,
More people, definitely.
More people, yeah.
right, yeah.
Any other questions for staff? I have questions for the applicant, if the applicant is available.
Yep.
Please step forward and state your name.
Good evening. Todd Simmons, Freeland and Kaufman, civil engineers out of Greenville, representing the client Contender Development. Appreciate the time. Really, I think Maurice has done a really good job kind of explaining what went behind the request. We've enjoyed working with staff getting to this point. We agree with staff, and we think this overall provides really a better use of the land. Obviously, I think the old PD allowed multifamily office, et cetera, and more density than what we're proposing. But, given where we are today with, kind of the climate that we're in, we think this is kind of a better use, better fit for the area at the moment. So, but yeah, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Going back to staff's question or recommendation about the landscaping, would they be agreeable to adding that language in for any kind of runoff areas or anything like that?
I think we're open to any discussion like that, and happy to work with staff on what exactly that is. If it's, obviously cost is always something that we have to keep in mind, but, I'm sure there's something that we can do there that kind of alleviates the concern. I understand the concern. I think there's a lot of slopes that kind of get left during these things that really don't get much attention and or maybe not as pretty to look at 5 years down the road as maybe they should be. So, we're happy to have those discussions.
Okay. Another question I have is the preliminary drawings have 136 homes on it. I kind of want to ask why you're asking for 150 when it doesn't look like you can shove much more on that. So,
I mean, I think it's a good point, and to be honest, when we get into design, we normally lose lots more than we gain lots, but we have not done full design, so
Okay.
As we got into it, and if we had the ability to add 3 or 4, we really just didn't want to paint ourselves into a corner that, okay, if we had the ability to pick up a few more, do we think we're going to get to 150? No, we don't. I think you're right. I think we're probably at the number that we're going to be at. I mean, but we just haven't done, final engineering to know those numbers, and we're just trying to set a number that didn't paint ourselves into a corner, I guess.
okay. Any other questions for applicant or?
Could you answer the question that Mr. Conyers asked earlier about the density under the current PDD versus now?
I don't know that I know the number if we just did 10,000 square foot lots completely. We did a couple of different exercises. One of them we did kind of look at the possibility of, multifamily here, and obviously the density is much less than that. I don't think, my guess is you probably don't get to 136 just because of the topographic constraints that are on the site. But you're probably in the high 120s, if I'm guessing, maybe mid to high 120s if you don't change the PD document.
Yeah, because, I mean, my thinking is if you go to as it states in here, typical 2-story single-family residence, and you have a three-story multifamily residence, I mean, the people density is going to go down, maybe not the buildings, but.
Just out of curiosity, what are the 3 swim facilities on?
Yeah, it stands for stormwater management facility for us, but we get that question a lot. So it's a detention pond, but it might be a wet pond, it might be a dry pond. But yeah, we probably need to change that nomenclature.
It's more of a detention pond than it is any kind of facility.
Yeah, it would not be a swim facility. It's probably the scale you can't see that there's no eye, so.
Okay, yeah. I couldn't see it in the.
Any other questions for applicant? All right. Thank you, Mr. Simmons.
Thank you.
All right, so now we have time for anybody who wants to oppose this, and then we have time for the applicant to come back up. So anybody who's in opposition, we ask that, we don't say things the same over and over if we have multiple people here. So if you would like to step forward and state your name and your address, I'd appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Loes McAllister, and I live at Fawn Hill in Rockville 2 Plantation. And this plan looks wonderful, the new plan, but there's one problem. Well, several problems. I used to teach at Midway, and I know the problems that you have when you have new developments coming in. Okay, right across the street from Midway, they're developing a new subdivision, and right beside Midway, they have a new subdivision, and right off of Crestview, they have a new subdivision and across there. All those children will be going to Midway or North Point. Well, the problem with that is the school's going to be overcrowded. Plus the fact is there's only 3 or 4 roads that go to each place. Well, those are only 2 lanes with maybe 600 or more houses being built. Will not sustain that. Oak Hill is horrible. Oak Hill Drive is just unbelievable. I mean, it's a wonder there hasn't been a lot of wrecks there because the road is very uneven and it's very narrow. And then Connell Springs Road, well, it's nice, but it's still 2 lanes. Not when you're going to have maybe 600 or 700 new homes. It won't sustain it. It'll be absolutely unreal. And a lot of times I go off of Crestview in the mornings, and it's always lined up to past almost to the Old Williamson Road, and that's Crestview. And that's just not even with the 600 or 700 new houses. What's going to happen with all this?
Well, Ms. McAllister, have you seen the roundabouts that are going in. They're moving Harriet Circle and the roundabout at Crestview and Midway.
Well, I've heard about that, but still it's 2 lanes. 2 lanes is not going to sustain it. So one of the buses, in 2 lanes is, especially Oak Hill, is horrible. They can't even hardly make the turn there.
Correct.
And I will add that she's correct, Oak Hill is bad, and that turning radius is bad. And
Correct.
Oak Hill is a county-maintained road, and we have been in discussions with Anderson County to seek funding, find ways to make whatever improvements we can do to help that flow of traffic. She's correct.
And Ms. McAllister, I will speak to, unfortunately, the developers are moving faster than public funds, and it does create frustration, especially when it comes around infrastructure, because that's been our fight. I think the first time this came up was I had just joined the Planning Commission back in 2015, and we were complaining about the roads then. So it's not going to be anything that's going to be fixed before the developer starts building its first house.
I know.
But I think it is noted that the growth in that area, the infrastructure is not good for that. So I think we need to continue to push the city and the county to work together to get those fixed.
And the state.
And
And the state.
yes, three governments working together. That works well. Is there any other concern, Ms. McAllister, beside the infrastructure and the constant development in that area?
It's just, yeah,
The school as well, yes.
The school, I mean, they're exploding already. I know the middle school and the high school, they're already over, with 500, 600 new families, 700 new families. They have kids, 2, 3 at a time, or maybe none, but anyway, that's going to be exploding. They should prepare for this.
Well, and Ms. McAllister, the problem is they could have, and we do have a retired educator here on the board, and he actually said that, the school board had a chance to buy more of that land around Midway at the time. Unfortunately, that's not for this commission.
I know, but
It does
it's
need
going to be a huge, gigantic
It does
problem.
need to be addressed with.
I'm really afraid of what's going to happen.
I may want to add too that, again, the school district, they know the development patterns and the growth and trends and things like that. But, and a good example of this, yes, development is moving fast, like you said, but fortunately, these 136 houses or the other subdivision with 150 houses, they're not built and occupied overnight. For instance, the first tract of that Midway Road, the 131 acres around Midway School that was annexed back in 2021, it took from the final date of annexation to the first house getting its building permit took over a year, just because of the infrastructure and things like that that had to be constructed. So it gives schools time also to plan ahead. Again, can they catch up? I don't know. Like you said, schools are crowded, but nonetheless, the houses aren't built overnight, fortunately, because it does give people time to, agencies time to plan.
All right. So thank you, Ms. McAllister. Any, besides the
I guess that's it. Thank you for listening. I'm frustrated.
Oh,
I'm
yes,
frustrated.
being a parent with children in these schools as well, it does concern me as well. So we'll have to bring that in front of City Council as well. So thank you, Ms. McAllister. Anyone else that does not have opposition about roads
Our schools.
or schools?
Yes.
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 Name?
Yes, sir. My name is Jay Wright. I'm a resident at the Clarendon neighborhood, which is kind of back at the north point of this map. And I'm an officer with the Homeowners Association, so just kind of, we're not in opposition, to the plan. This is more of just trying to seek information and just kind of trying to address some concerns. I don't know if this is the proper forum or not, but
as far as, kind of the concerns that the neighborhood had is just, the property, you had mentioned the density as far as the potential for the 150 houses. That was something that we had thought of as well. I mean, looking at this current plan and trying to fit another 14 houses on it, we were just like, what? Where would those go and how would that work? And so that was a concern we had. And, as far as, I know the developer doesn't want to limit themselves, but trying to find some, assurance that there's not going to be another 14 lots built on the land that's already there. And if this is, I understand they've been working with the city planning office to really work on conserving some of the trees and operating under the tree ordinance. But just kind of some, I don't know, if, some assurance as far as what's going to actually be saved, and if this plan is kind of the final, if we can have assurance that these areas are going to be protected. Secondly, as far as Clarendon is concerned, just trying to, and I don't know if this is a request we can make, but just having some kind of a buffer, because, as it stands now, it looks like we're just going to be essentially looking at the back of about, 30 different houses, which we understand development's going to go there, but just, I didn't know if there was a way to have some kind of evergreen hedge, because the problem is, during the fall and winter, basically you can see all the way up to the top of the hill, and which is, they had mentioned the extreme topography, so around about right there, it really, there's a pretty dramatic grade downhill toward the creek, and this is actually forested wetlands. And so just, concern about runoff into the wetlands and runoff affecting the creek levels or runoff into the forested wetlands there. And also, as far as, looking at some of the construction being done right now, I mean, basically they just kind of, those developers have kind of just clear cut, to where it's just a big muddy field. And I didn't know if there was a way, if that was the intention or kind of the building plan for this, or if they can kind of go in and leave some of the areas, kind of wherever there's construction going on, to have that cleared out, but not do it the way you're clearing out a whole 60 acres and just having a huge mud field, for that long period of time prior to construction on the houses and development of that nature. So those are just, and again, we're not opposing the motion or anything. We're just, those are the concerns that the Clarendon neighborhood has, and just seeking clarification on those issues.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. As far as the buffer, it used to be that you could go in and just clear cut land. But Mr. Darnell, you might need to go ahead and speak to this after walking the property. What is the trees like in the back, or towards the wetlands of this property, or anything like that?
So what you're seeing here is area. So first of all, staff has walked the site and identified some areas and gone back to the office and kind of married what we saw on the site with the proposed plans. All along here, you can see, it didn't show up but very well, but all these trees that are identified in green are to be preserved. So that's something the developer has already said we're going to save, right? And then those shaded areas around here, staff has identified as some potential areas for additional tree save. And we were thinking about buffering the existing neighborhoods and making sure that they're preserved. In discussions with the applicant, there's going to be some grading required because of the existing steep slope. So they said they would preserve as much as they can along there, and then the idea is that we would come back in with some planting requirements on those slopes. Again, because we've got a trail running right here, which this is a really super nice area. If you've ever walked the trail, the town's put in the city's put in a new bridge, pedestrian bridge and trail system here. as well as maintaining, again, this buffer, this really nice buffer with the neighboring development.
Okay.
So does that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
I kind of wanted to speak to that. So that was good. And then I did not see any kind of, was there buffer language in the PDD from staff? More than just the, it does say in L1.
Yeah, particularly on the perimeter of the
Yeah.
development.
Okay. What is an L1 buffer?
L1 is in our zoning ordinance, essentially a tree per 30 feet and shrubs that are between those trees.
Okay.
Now, along the perimeter, along Harriet Circle and McConnell Springs Road, and we've talked to the applicant and they've agreed to do it, as you can see it on that drawing, but to preserve a lot of the existing trees, we would rather see that than the L1 along Harriet Circle. We think that provides more of the screening and the aesthetics that you're looking for, and Chris can add to that as well.
Okay.
If needed.
Any more?
Well, I've got a question. So currently, as it stands, these are suggestions, right, for added plantings?
Actually, and what you see in this document is what's being proposed. And again, that bullet list that you saw in the staff report, those have been added essentially into this new document.
Right, yes.
But the one thing that's,
The big concern I would have, that I share with the folks from Clarendon is, it is mostly deciduous trees, if I'm not mistaken, right? And during the winter months, it's not gonna be a whole lot of a visual buffer there, nor a noise buffer, whereas evergreen plantings would offer better protection. And if we approve this tonight, does that mean that later on, the developer can say, sorry, but we just can't do that?
Yeah. That's one thing we were talking about. We recommend that some sort of attention is given to that, whether it's a sentence or two in the PDD document, that we can work with the applicant to assure that there's better landscaping, whether it's evergreen or otherwise, along those slopes.
And that would be my question. If we approve this request tonight, are we locked into this unless they agree to amend it?
Right, again, this is a recommendation that goes to city council, and if it stays the same, correct, it would be approved as is, and there would not be any language regarding
I mean, I'd be more comfortable asking them to put that in before I vote.
I was about to say, Mr. Simmons, can you come back up? Because I do want to ask you about, again, this corridor for Anderson has grown quite a bit. And as Ms. McAllister was stating, there's already been a lot of other homes in there. I would love to see some of the developers to have a dog in the fight when it comes to the roads, and because it's going to help y'all sell your homes. But as far as what Dr. Sconners is speaking on, is that something that we can put in now, or do we have to go?
In other words, we're relying on your goodwill to agree to do this later if we approve it tonight.
One thing we could do, it does require discussion, and I know there's probably things they need to look at as well. Whatever recommendation you make, you may say something to that effect, and then between now and the city council meeting, perhaps we could have new language incorporated into the document for the city council to review.
Yeah. So we could say, we could have a motion to approve with adding language, yeah. Would that be kind of what you're thinking?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Simmons, do you think your group would be agreeable to adding that language about, kind of the landscaping, the buffers,
Yeah, if I understand correctly, we're talking about, if you do move for approval, it'd be with the condition that, that the applicant continues to work with staff on additional language of the PD document, to enhance screening from adjoining properties or something like that. Am I on the path of where we're headed? And
Yes.
then I think
Yes.
we're open to that.
And ideally, that would we would like to see that happen before it goes to council.
Before it goes to council.
Correct.
Biggest
Correct.
concern being, like I said, if you've walked that, I've walked that property, and it's mostly large deciduous trees, and come winter months, it's not going to be much of a buffer. You guys know, I mean, I've been in Clarendon, and he's right, you can see all the way to the top of the hill in the wintertime. So, but something more evergreen, something a little thicker would offer them a better, and also the
Homeowners.
occupants
Yeah.
of this
Yes.
neighborhood, a better buffer between their neighbors.
Yeah.
So they're not
I'm
looking at the
thinking,
back of
obviously,
houses,
You-
so.
You've got the creek, and, I don't think
Yeah.
we want to get down and try to plant in the creek. So,
Well, no,
so
of
again, I
course
think
not.
I think to Chris's point, it's really more maybe slope related, that, as we have a slope back there, that evergreen would kind of be on our
On the s-
slope.
on the slope,
back
yeah.
slope of
Yeah.
the back of those yards, I guess.
So we're on the
is-
same page on that. We're talking about the same thing. Okay, great.
All right, any other questions for staff
do.
or applicant?
Have
Yes.
y'all talked to the school board about this?
I do not know if my client has or not.
The reason I'm saying this is that T.L. Hanna, they're at full capacity. To build a high school like T.L. Hanna would be $75 million to buy the land, grade it, and build it $75 million. You're gonna have to have another elementary school. That's about $35 million. So, I just don't know.
Again, I think it goes back to the developer starting to have a dog in the fight with our infrastructure on roads, schools, because it's, all we can do is, we already have a PDD in effect for this, so this is almost helping out that PDD, but to help sell the properties, we're going to have to start working together with business owners and the three governments that control
As it
the
stands,
infrastructure.
it's much worse options than what is being offered here in the current PDD document. So I think it's a win to amend the document that exists into
Correct.
what we've got here.
Correct.
So,
Hearing that, is there any other for staff or applicant? Hearing none, does someone want to make a motion for,
I would make a motion that it be approved with the specific language that recommends from us, as well as staff, that they work together to provide this language regarding grading the areas and replanting with native evergreen trees to stabilize the soil, just as staff has recommended.
And if that passes, we'll start discussions with the applicant tomorrow.
great. I'll second that motion.
second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, so this will go, I guess the
Scheduled for-
applicant will go in front of you, but then it'll be scheduled for
Right,
the
we'll
city
start working through
council.
that language, and again, the earliest it would be May 8th.
All right. With nothing else on the agenda, again, want to welcome Chris Darnell, our new senior planner, and thank you for going ahead and helping us out this evening. With nothing else on the agenda, we will consider ourselves adjourned. Thank you.